to help make sure this state remains the greatest state in all of these United States. And I'm joined here with by our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, as well as our Commissioner of Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Mark Glass. We also have State Representative Bob Rommel from just south of here in Collier County. And we have Ace Hardware owner, John Gavin, who's here to speak about what we're going to discuss. You know, you can look around different parts of the country, and one of the things that I've noticed is that if you go into like a pharmacy and the toothpaste is behind lock and key, like it's almost like Fort Knox, some of these places, just for normal items, you know you've got some problems. And what you've seen in different cities, whether it's San Francisco, LA, New York, all these places, is they've effectively enacted policies that legalize shoplifting. So people just go in, they take what they want, they leave. It's caused some of these businesses to totally shut down and close up shop in some of these areas. And so that's been bad. It's very inconvenient, of course, to normal citizens, but it also really breeds a culture of lawlessness, and I think you've seen that build in many parts of this country. Now in Florida, we've taken a different tact on all of this stuff. We believe in being a law and order state. Our crime rate is at a 50-year low. That doesn't happen by accident. It's because you have policies that are empowering law enforcement to do their jobs, that are holding criminals accountable, and whether that is working with the legislature to enact stiff penalties for fentanyl dealers, which we've done, whether it's making sure that our state attorneys are actually enforcing the law and not nullifying the law, whether it's eliminating any talk of so-called bail reform where they just let people out without having to post bail and they end up committing more and more crimes, or even something as common sense as enacting the death penalty for pedophiles, which we have done in Florida and have led the nation on that. On issue after issue, when it relates to law and order, we're standing on the side of public safety. We're standing on the side of our law-abiding citizens, and it's made a difference. There was a discussion on, I think it was CNN, and they're talking about, because you have illegal aliens that are involved in these theft rings in places like New York City. So you have a massive border invasion, which is a huge problem. And then they get into these places and they commit crimes. And so they were talking about how they're going around ransacking retail establishments in New York City, but then a lot of times they like to spend their money elsewhere, including Florida. And so the host said, well, why aren't they stealing in Florida? And they're like, because they go to jail in Florida and they don't want to go to jail. So they go back to New York and steal. And so you see that and you're just like, man, we've got to make sure that we don't go down the road of some of these other states. And so while we've done a good job, there's always ways that we can do even better. If you think about just this issue of retail theft, $112 billion was lost in 2022 alone just from retail theft. And I would be willing to bet you the lion's share of that is because of policies that have facilitated retail theft, that have basically turned a blind eye to the theft and effectively has legalized this type of shoplifting. So that's a lot of money that is going out. And it's not just the money. It's what it does to the culture. It's what it does to the rule of law. You see this in places like San Francisco, massive increases in shoplifting in places like Los Angeles and other parts of California, and that's totally driven by policy. They're doing it because they can get away with it, and you just walk in and start stealing things, and nobody does anything about it. That is not acceptable. So we understand that this is an issue that is really negatively impacting places around our country. We also know that we want to make sure that we continue to do things right here in Florida. So we're going to be working with the legislature. I'm working with Bob Rommel, who has spearheaded this, to make sure that we are deterring this type of retail theft. And part of that is you need to make sure that, of course, prosecutors do their job, and we've shown we've been willing to suspend prosecutors when they haven't enforced the law. But part of it is to make sure that the penalties are severe enough to deter people from doing this into the future. And right now, we have a situation in Florida where you only get a felony if you do 5 different retail thefts within a 45-day period. Well, excuse me, you shouldn't do it at all, but if you do it and get caught, you go back to the well again. They should drop the hammer on you. And so we want to make sure that we have that period of time much longer in terms of looking at the thefts, and you should not have to get 5 thefts to make a felony. So we're going to work to say, if you have 2 thefts in a year, at most 3 thefts in a year, that's not going to be a misdemeanor at that point. That is going to be a felony offense. And that's going to make a big difference because people have to suffer really significant penalties when that's the case. Another thing that we're looking to do is create a criminal offense called aggravated retail theft, which would be a first-degree felony. And that will be, on one hand, anyone that uses a firearm to commit a retail theft, or anyone that already has 2 or more convictions for retail theft, they will, by definition, then be charged with a first-degree felony. We also have situations where you'll have groups of people that will go and blitz a store, and they basically overwhelm security because you have a half a dozen people that may be doing this at any given time. Under our proposal, it would constitute a third-degree felony if you have 5 or more people that are orchestrating a retail theft, and it'll be a second-degree felony if you use social media to solicit others to participate in retail. And these rings start online. They go, and sometimes they'll have a dozen people that show up. And what are you going to do? You have 1 security person or 1 clerk. They're not going to be able to stop that. So that's really, really important. And then finally, we're increasing penalties for people who steal packages off people's front porches. Because you have Amazon will deliver it, they drop this stuff off, and sometimes it's gone. And you have the ability with cameras now on people's doorsteps. This is easily solvable, but you got to have adequate penalties to be able to do that. So I am pleased at these announcements. We're going to be able to get this done during this legislative session, and this is basically, you got to think very thoughtfully about how you approach a variety of ways of public policy, different manners, but I do think that one rule of thumb can be, particularly when you're talking about law enforcement and public safety, just watch what New York and California do and then do the opposite, and you're likely going to be okay. And so this is really kind of the anti-New York and the anti-California. All right, well, we'll hear from some of our speakers. So Attorney General Moody, come on up.
Well, today is an example of why Florida leads the nation in folks wanting to move to our state. No other state has as many people trying to get in to be residents. And Governor DeSantis, a large part of that is due to your leadership, sticking by his principles, knowing that in order to protect freedom, the linchpin of that is law and order. Florida is a law and order state. Governor DeSantis has said it many times. That is not only important for our citizens and our residents, our families to hear so that they feel secure and know that we're looking out for them, but it's important for the men and women who wake up every day and put on that badge and put on a bulletproof vest and go out to work because they know that their leaders have their backs, and we're going to give them the tools that they need to do their jobs, and then we're going to say, go enforce the laws. So today is a great example of why Florida is leading and why we have to do everything in our power to keep Florida, Florida. All these other states are going to have slogans like make California, Florida, or make New York, Florida. We have to keep Florida, Florida, continue to be the leader. And this is a great example of how we do that. We strengthened our retail theft laws about 2 years ago. This further strengthens those, and we're giving our law enforcement tools, a database, a statewide task force, a retail crime exchange, and we're busting up criminal rings. We just busted up one in 9 jurisdictions, 20 different retailers, over $20 million, and that's because of the proactive legislation that comes out of this state. And we're reinforcing our retail theft laws, but we're also now focusing on a new trend, porch piracy. Did you know that last year nearly half of Americans had a package stolen from their porch? Think about that. In a nation where we live under a rule of law, every one of you, half of you, had a package stolen. And just in the last quarter, nearly 20%, and that was a package valued at $50. That would not be a felony. We are not going to stop this if people don't feel they're going to be held accountable. And let me just say, as an AG and as a mother, 2 weeks ago in Miami, a parent or guardian or someone used a child to steal a package from a porch. Not only will this increase the felony penalties of porch piracy, but if you are a parent encouraging your child to steal a package, you better be ready to face child neglect or endangerment charges as well. You can be charged as a principal. Do not think that using someone else to steal packages will get you out of this increased penalties and legislations. Not in Florida, not up in here. The other thing that this does is it prevents the flash mobs. You've seen them all over the nation. And I'm so proud of this governor, our legislative leaders, our directors of law enforcement. They watch these trends. And we say we're going to do everything we can here to prevent that from happening by changing our laws before it becomes a problem. And I just want to give you an example. Last year, I was so proud to stand with Governor DeSantis when we passed what we called the Real Safety Act, after Illinois passed this crazy statute that released everybody on no cash bail, including the first arrestees on that were people that attacked cops. They were out in 24 hours. In Florida, we said, no, not here. We're going to pass a Real Safety Act. We're going to presume repeat and violent offenders are detained. And there will be a minimum standard for all of our jurisdictions in Florida. So just here in Cape Coral yesterday, you had attempted retail theft with somebody charging at loss prevention officers with a gun. The woman spit on them. They got arrested. After great police work, after tips, we have star tips here in Florida. We announce so all of y'all can be a part of the process to help us go after the bad guys. They were arrested. You know where they are 24 hours later? Still in jail. That's not happening around this country, but it will happen here in Florida. And that is because of this great governor, who I am so proud to work with every day, and the amazing leaders we have in the legislature. Thank you so much for inviting us to your great city to share this important news and an announcement. It's truly an honor to be a part of leadership in the great state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. It is an honor to be here in front of you. As you just heard from the governor and our attorney general, it's amazing to be in my job. I will tell you that. To have the support and the backing and the foresight that they have for our great state to combat retail theft, organized retail theft. We're seeing this stuff happen all over the United States, smash and grabs, complex schemes that they're doing and everything. We all pay the price for that. We all do. No matter if it's happening in Washington State, Oregon like crazy, New York, all these other places that love this type of, not want to prosecute anybody. We pay for it. As citizens in the United States, we pay for it in our communities. But I'm going to tell you something right here. This governor right here does not tolerate it. And he has given us the tools and the know-how to go after it and get it. So if you plan on doing this type of stuff in our state, I seriously caution you, because I'm charged as a commissioner of FDLE to work with all our local, state, and federal partners. We will jump jurisdictions and we will go after you if you steal from our retailers. We will find you. And working with our business owners, and you're going to hear from John here in just a minute, that's how we do it. We also do it through the tip lines. We do it through everything. If you know that you're receiving or you're seeing on Facebook Marketplace or some of these other Craigslist, and you're seeing stuff that you know is probably fenced material, which is somebody trying to sell that they stole from another business, we need you to call it in. We need that. We need those tips to allow our task forces to go after these folks. So I just want to say again, Governor, thank you for all your leadership on this, and I'm looking forward to continue to put these bad guys in jail. So thank you very much.
I want to thank the governor for his leadership. I want to thank Speaker Renner, Senate President Pasadoma. We truly are the greatest state in the nation. We know that tens of thousands of people continue to move here, and it's because of the leadership of the governor, the speaker, and the Senate President. I started looking at this bill around November, around Thanksgiving. I'm originally from the New York area, so is my wife, and we love going to New York, and we love going to San Francisco, but we won't go there anymore. Businesses are closing at a rapid rate because they can't afford to stay open. People are afraid to go shopping, and that's not going to happen here in Florida. When I've seen what people are doing, especially what using the internet to encourage knuckleheads to go and destroy somebody's property, to destroy people's jobs, to destroy people's opportunity to earn a living, I knew we had to do something. We are the free state of Florida, but we are not the place where you come and get free goods. With this bill, this will deter people from acting. They'll know that if they come here and they act, well, they will be punished. We want to continue to encourage people to move to the state of Florida. We want to encourage them to come here. We're a state where we have no income tax. But if you're one of those bad actors from one of those other states, if you come here and you think you're going to do that nonsense here, well, you're going to meet one of these local PDs or local sheriffs, and you will go to jail, and you will have a long-term relationship with our Department of Corrections. We take freedom seriously here. We're going to continue to grow our state, and I'm very, very, very proud to be part of this, and thank you, Governor, for being part of it. And with that, we're going to continue to grow. God bless us.
Governor DeSantis, thank you for this opportunity. And commissioners, everybody else that's here from the state, the county, Cape Coral, thank you guys. But not to have you play second fiddle. I couldn't be more honored to be here in the Cape Coral Police Department with all these officers, your brothers and sisters, and first responders. You guys are the all-stars. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am John Gavin of Gavin's Ace Hardware. This is our general manager, Mike Lewis. We opened our first store 3 miles off Fort Myers Beach in 1987 and added our newer store here in Cape Coral in 2017. I was asked to say something about retail theft. And whenever I talk about something in our business, I tend to go back to memories of my father. Almost 40 years ago, he answered an early morning alarm call and was the first one to the property, and he was smart enough not to rush in. He was turning off slowly off the street, and he realized real quickly there was a vehicle leaving. He was smart enough to not go to a stills in case somebody was going to be taking shots at him or something, but the other car was in no hurry, almost like a Hollywood scene. They went really slowly across each other, happened to be under a street light. My father was able to give police a perfect description of not only him, his vehicle. He could take him in the store and pound it, where he could point out each area where each product in the back of his pickup came from. It was an old vehicle smash and grab. Police doing their work, prosecutors doing their work came months later, and they tied this guy to quite different jobs. But they had one person who could put him away, is my dad. I remember saying, you weren't hurt, we weren't hurt, our work family wasn't hurt. It was a rug cleaner and some power tools and stuff. You don't need to get in front and let this guy's family and friends know who you are. I knew him better than that. It was his civil duty. As a civilian, he knew he was the last link in the chain between legislation, prosecution, and doing the police work. It was his job to back you guys up and help put him away, and he did it. I stand here today, and I'd never say I fill my dad's shoes, but we have a lot of the same challenges. I was asked if we have experienced organized crime, and no, we're in a very fortunate area of the country. We have not had the big groups of people and that kind of stuff. The small things happen all the time, or 2 or 3, and a couple of them try to distract you while they take other stuff. On one part, we're the fortunate ones. We're on the lighter side of the problem. But what does that mean? It's still a big problem. Between our 2 stores, and we're basically small businesses here, between our 2 stores, the amount of money we lose on it and spend on recovery and dealing with it, we could probably have 4 more employees. One of the things I learned, I come to this on my own, not my dad, but one of the proudest things I do is we create jobs. And we help put meals on tables for people. Well, the people that are stealing from us are taking that away. And again, we're fortunate things go in cycles. Sometimes they get worse. I'm not hoping to jinx myself. But still, they're taking jobs away and they're raising prices. And we so appreciate what you're doing. So appreciate what you're doing. And thank you for your time. And let's rock on.
All right.
Well, we're appreciative of law enforcement. How many, you guys have had a lot of the bonus people, like for how many of you had, would you say? You've had 15, and that's like the last year or two? Yeah, that's good. And then your city, what's the population now of Cape Coral? 220? Okay. Yeah, I know. I saw they had a thing in the conference room where different sectors of Cape Coral for the police are, and then they did the comparison. So like one sector was bigger than all of Sarasota, one was bigger than like Lakewood Ranch or whatever, and then you see kind of, how it's doing that. And I knew, like, when after Ian people were still buying homes and really rushing down here, like I knew you can continue to see. But I think it's great, and I think you guys have done well. Our bonus recruitment program, we've had I think now 4,000 police officers that have used that for our sheriff's departments, our police departments, even our state agencies. And it's some people moving from other states to Florida. It's also young people who are deciding to go into law enforcement for the first time. So it's been a really big success. We're going to re-up it. We're working with the legislature to re-up that for another year coming up here in the next fiscal year, which I think is really, really good. And I knew we were doing something right when I was in Southern California, I don't know, now about 5 or 6 months ago, and I saw one of the police chiefs there. I asked him how he's doing. He said he was doing great, but all his police officers want to move to Florida now. So, what are you going to do? All right. Any questions? Oh, we're working on all this stuff. I mean, I think we're going to have some significant tax relief. I'm very confident of that. I think it's important. We did $2.7 billion in tax relief for this current fiscal year. That's the most ever in Florida history. We had never even done $1 billion before I was governor. So we did $2.7 billion, yet at the same time ran a big budget surplus, paid down debt. We've paid down 25% of our state's debt just since I've been governor in 2019. And then we also were able to do big things on education, on environmental restoration, on transportation. We did $4 billion in addition to accelerate transportation projects because the state's growing. You have bottlenecks in different parts of the state. And do you want to wait 20 years or do you want to get that done sooner? So we did all of that. So we have the ability to provide meaningful tax relief. The revenue comes in, even though we reduce taxes, our revenue comes in higher than expected almost every month now. I think we've beat expectations almost every month for probably the last 3 years. I mean, it's been pretty close. There may be a month or two where we didn't or came in what the estimates were. But I think that's just a testament that whatever problems there are nationally, we're not immune to it. You just saw the CPI report that came in hotter than anticipated, and it really bites people where it counts. I mean, it bites people for housing, it bites people for transportation, and it bites for food. I mean, those are the staples. Some people say, well, if you exclude some of this stuff, then inflation's somehow not good. Yeah, if you don't eat and you don't have a shelter and you don't work, well, yeah. I mean, how many people can say that? So it's really still biting, and it's very. So I think our tax relief has helped mitigate that for Floridians. You're now in a situation in Florida. All baby items are permanently excluded from sales tax. So diapers, wipes, cribs, strollers, anything involving babies, you're off the hook for taxes. That saves families serious money. So we're going to lean in with them. We're going to work on some good tax relief. And at the end of the day, we've governed the state well. We have a good budget that's managed very well. So we have the luxury of being able to do a lot of these things. But we also are going to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. I will veto spending that's excessive. I know I talked with the speaker yesterday. We want to make sure that budget is in line. Obviously, our population is growing. There's been an inflationary period that was set off by the COVID spending. We know that, and we're, of course, not immune to that. So that means we have to build more roads, build more schools. So there's certain things. But on a per capita inflation adjusted basis, we don't want to see the budget, take any major detours upward. We want to make sure that we're built for the long haul, and we will be doing that even when we're cutting taxes. Yep.
We're hearing from people every day who are seeing their home insurance rates nearly double as notices go out for 2024. Do you think enough is being done this legislative session, or will there have to be more done?
Well, they're going to do, so we've done the My Safe Florida Home program. The House, I think, is going to do even more than we recommended. The people that have done that, so you get a grant, you can make hardening improvements, 71% of people either had no increase or a decrease in their rates when they used My Safe Florida Home program. So I'm supportive of it. I think we're going to do that in a big way. And then we've had $1 billion of private capital come into the state of Florida over the last year. Nobody thought that was possible. If we were here 15 months ago in the aftermath of Ian, people didn't think we'd have any carriers, or they thought that it would be. So there have been a lot of reforms that are done. We have a lot more companies that have now come into the market, and ultimately that's the way it works. The state cannot control the different rates. It's going to have to be a consumer has a half a dozen options, and then they compete for your business. That's the only way you're going to able to do. I would also note this, though, the inflation report that came out today, I mean, the insurance just across the board nationwide has been a huge, huge problem in terms of the increases. I think year over year, auto insurance nationwide is up over 20%. And so this is not something that's unique to Florida. I mean, you're seeing it in all these other states. Part of that is a effect, I think, of the COVID. Part of it is the supply chain, the inflation, where things are more expensive. And then you look at things like auto insurance. Yes, we have had major supply problems over many years for autos. That impacts the ability to repair. But then I think these EVs are a lot more expensive to repair, and I think that impacts those rates as well. So, but you're going to see a huge amount of money dedicated to My Safe Florida Home, which has proven to give people some meaningful relief. Yes? Next one.
Yes. Yesterday, Collier County Commissioner Rico Castro was arrested. Is your office looking into this situation? Is it possible he will be suspended soon?
We are looking into it. I don't think as of this morning we knew what he was arrested for. I don't think anything had been put on the clerk of court website yet. So obviously my job as governor, I have to basically discipline local elected officials if they are doing things that are neglecting duty. The Constitution lays it out: misfeasance, malfeasance, incompetence, drunkenness are certain things. And so if somebody is brought up on charges, sometimes that can trigger that suspension power that we do. So I don't have any information beyond just the fact that he was arrested. And so we kind of let this play out. And then as we get the facts, if I have to act, then we will act.
Adding your name to the Sanibel Causeway. What's your reaction?
Where is he at? Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll let them decide. But I think that if you look, and it's not certainly just me or the state. I think you had a lot of people locally, the PD here, Sheriff's Department. If you look at Ian and how strong it was and how much damage. And obviously, we're still coping with it. And I said that the day after it, that these things take a lot of time. But I think that it was a great effort from top to bottom in terms of doing it. And so it was tough. It was obviously a very devastating storm. But I don't know that you could find a Category 5 storm that's hit other places in this country where you had a response and recovery that was effective. It doesn't mean everything was done right. It doesn't mean that it's all, everything has been taken care of, because we know there's more. But given the number of people that were impacted, given the ferocity of this, if you didn't have people out there here in the local community working hard, if we didn't have the power, all that stuff that we did, the rescues, I mean, it would have really been. But I think that those bridges are something that reverberated beyond Florida. I mean, I was in all parts of the country. Someone will come up to me and tell me, thank you for Sanibel Causeway, or thank you for Pine Island Bridge. And I think it's because we just assume government would take 6 months to do this stuff, right? I mean, like, nobody actually thinks that you can actually get the job done. And so we did it. I think it was important for those islands, but I think also broader, it's like, okay, yes, you can get rid of bureaucracy, you can stop making excuses, and you can actually just get the job done. And I think that's what we showed here in Southwest Florida. Well, look, I mean, I think that right now, federal law says no social media accounts age 13 and under. Now, I don't think these companies are necessarily following that, but that is federal law right now. What the legislature is proposing is to add 14 and 15 to that, which would be an expansion beyond the current federal law. And what I've said previously, these things have huge legal hurdles. They've been held up in courts. I don't want to go down the road of doing something that is not going to pass muster legally. I've also said that I am very much opposed to forcing adults to have to unmask themselves and not be able to use like a Twitter anonymously. Anonymous speech is part of what built the country. I mean, the Federalist Papers were anonymous pamphlets that were written by Madison, Hamilton, and John Jay did not write their names to it. They wrote under a pseudonym. So I don't want to have anything where government is forcing the disclosure of folks. But when you're talking about verifying ages, if you do that in a way that's ham-handed, you're going to lead to that. So that's a definite no for me in terms of losing anonymity. You know, I want to make sure that we're able to do, and I want to make sure that we're empowering parents to be able to have recourse if their kids are doing things that they don't want them to be doing. And I can say this, the social media has been bad for kids. There's no question about that. I'm not saying there aren't any good things, but it's been a net negative. And I think a lot of parents, you're fighting a losing battle. I mean, heck, I know when I have my 3-year-old mentioning Snapchat, I don't know how she figured out Snapchat. We don't have it in our house. I mean, I don't know how to use it. I don't have it on any device, and yet she knows. And then our first grader knows about Instagram and things. Again, they don't have it, but they know this. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's at that age. Can you imagine as you get older, you know, some of the stuff? So what has been successful that we've done is last year we did legislation to empower schools to say, you know what, put the device down when you're sitting in class. And so you've had it where I think Orange County, you know, probably more liberal than what the state's policy would be on most things, but they went down this road and everyone's so much happier that they're actually sitting in class and listening to what the teacher says, and they're not texting all day or have their face buried into the device. So I think that's been hugely successful to do that. And I remember when we proposed it, you know, it's like knee-jerk. People were saying, oh, you know, this. There's nothing wrong with just saying, check the phone at the front of the class, leave it there, do the class, and you can pick it up and go. So it's a problem. But you got to look at this in the right way, and I think that I'm not going to be supporting if I don't think it's going to be something that's going to pass legal muster in the courts. But as of right now, there's a lot of 12 and 13-year-olds who are using social media. Those companies are violating federal law. Now, there's not a lot of teeth to the federal law, but they are violating federal law by using that. Stiffer penalties are absolutely necessary to create an adequate deterrence of the crime. The reason why you have all this stuff that's spiraled out of control in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco is because they know they are not going to be held accountable. So they have every incentive to want to go in and fleece these retail establishments, knowing that at worst they'll get a slap on the wrist. Well, we're now saying, hey, if you're using a firearm to commit a retail theft, you know, that is going to be a felony. You're going to go to jail if you do that. I guarantee you people are going to think twice before they do that. So yes, adequate deterrence is a key component to making sure that we have safe communities, and what you've seen in those other areas, the deterrent aspect of it is just broken down. I mean, meet people who've moved from these places. You know, it's like we're not just like popping off and we're criticizing San Francisco, LA, Chicago, New York. I mean, people move from there and they tell us some of the stuff that's happened. You know, I had a guy telling me in San Francisco he had somebody break into his house, and the police went to him and said, "You're not pressing charges, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm pressing charges. The guy broke into my house." Like, well, they're not going to prosecute him. I'm like, really? You can break into somebody's house and not be held accountable? They break into people's cars all the time. So once that conduct is basically approved by the authorities, you're going to continue to see more and more of it, and you end up having New York City. What they did back in the day when they had a terrible run in the 70s and 80s, they came in with Rudy, and they did the broken windows philosophy. So the small crimes, people were held accountable, and that created a culture of law and order, and it ended up leading to a reduction of bigger crimes. Because if you tolerate lawlessness, that's going to build, and people are going to commit more and more serious crimes. So these penalties are going to be impactful. They're going to be effective. And the fact that you already have some of these people in New York saying they don't want to steal in Florida because they'll go to jail, that is already, I think, out there. People know we take this seriously. So can you imagine we come here and we strengthen these laws across the board? We're going to be in really, really good shape, and it's going to be a huge contrast between what you're seeing there. And, you know, it's like some of these are big retail conglomerates like a CVS or a Walgreens. Like, you know, they close. To me, like, those are really big companies. They make a lot of money. I'm not necessarily shedding tears, you know, for the companies, but I do think when you have a situation where these kind of cornerstone establishments are closing, that creates, I think, a sense of malaise in a community. You know, In-N-Out Burger just pulled out of Oakland, California. It's too dangerous. They don't want to do it. All these retail establishments in San Francisco, a lot of them have closed. It's too dangerous. They have too much theft. That just, I think, creates an overall malaise about the direction of those communities. Whereas I think here in Florida, I think there's a lot more optimism about what's going on. I think people are excited to know that that we take public safety seriously, and the results speak for themselves. I mean, you don't have a 50-year low in the crime rate by accident. You have that because you have good policy in place, you've got good people that are working to protect and serve, and you have communities that are supporting the people that are wearing the uniform. That's what we've done, and that's why we've done a good job. All right, well, good to see you all. God bless everybody. Take care.